And he said, they asked him on Al Jazeera, he was being interviewed. They said, did you ever, have a goal to be the richest black man in Africa, the richest African or richest black man on the planet? Do you aspire to be the richest man in the world? And he said, no, I never aspired to be the richest. I only aspired to be the most impactful. Mm-hmm.
Internets, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Sultans and Sneakers. I'm out here with my man Abiola Benjamin or Benjamin Abiola. Tell me, like, this is a man with actually like two names.
I got more than that.
More than that, but
yeah. So all that's correct, right? It just depends on who you're talking to.
Okay.
All right. So, my mother, gave me, let me just back up. My father's Nigerian and he's Yoruba, and he wanted me to have a Yoruba name, something that carried on the Yoruba tradition. He had always expressed the desire or the importance of me carrying on a tradition, a culture that's lasted for thousands of years. And so these names were important. However, my mom was like, well, hold up, we're in America, that's cool, but we're in America, and people aren't going to be able to understand that name, and I don't want my son to be profiled when he's applying for a job or applying for anything. I don't want people to look at his name and be able to tell what his race or color is. And so she named me after her grandfather, which is my great-grandfather, which is Benjamin, right, first name.
Okay.
And then gave me his last name. So on paper, it just looks very unassuming.
Yeah.
You read, you read Benjamin Gordon, you ain't going to be able to tell if I'm black or white or whatever.
All right.
However, I didn't know my first name was Benjamin till I was maybe fourth grade. Mm-hmm. The only name I knew growing up, my family called me, even when I was called in school, friends, was Oluwajimi or Abiola Oluwajimi. Mm-hmm. And I usually tended to the name. I guess everybody thought the Olu was just simpler to pronounce.
Yeah.
So most people, my American side of the family just called me Olu.
Right.
And then I was like, why do I have to have this exotic name, Mom? Like, why can't I just have a normal name like Michael Jordan or Christopher Robin or something?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then she said, well, eventually she was like, well, your first name is Benjamin. And I was like, what? You just held back from me all this time? Like, how could you just completely hold out on me like that? Like, that was so wrong. And so then I was insisting, do not call me Olu. Just call me Benjamin. Mm-hmm. Call me Ben, right? And then as I became an adult and I started to really read and study and the history and the meaning of Abiola Oluwajimi, I understood the power in that, and I started to lean into that and embrace that more. And so I had family members that were still calling me either Abiola or Abi or Oluwajimi, but they would call me Ben because I was insisting on being called Ben. Yeah. But still, even into adulthood, people would be like, Ben. Right. And then eventually I was like, you know what? Sorry, you can call me Olu.
Right.
It's all right.
Okay.
You can call me Abiola. It's all right.
I remember the first time we met, you gave me, we got to talking about careers.
Yeah.
And, we can touch on that a little bit, but so I got you saved in my phone as Ben Olu.
Right.
Because sometimes I'll tell somebody Ben, I was doing a podcast last night with the Kanoya. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, and I know he knows you. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, yo, tomorrow I'm doing a show with, Abiola. And he was like, yeah, I don't think I know him. It's like, you know him. I was like, Ben Gordon? He's like, no, Abiola. And he's like, oh, you talking about Olu? I'm like, yeah, okay. So that's definitely something. But take me back. So you're back. Was your father Nigerian? Is your father Nigerian Christian? or like religiously? What was your faith tradition growing up? So, long story short, is what I'm trying to get to.
Growing up, I grew up early on in a Lutheran household, Lutheran Christian, because that's what my mother's family, for the most part is Lutheran. And then my mother started to gravitate more towards the non-denominational evangelical side of Christianity. And, I always believed in God. And, she told me about God, and, and I would go to church. And, that's what it was. However, I did have one uncle who became Muslim early on, but we really didn't know. And then not too long before my mother passed away, I had actually found out that she was in the Nation of Islam for a little while. And then was in the Black Panthers, and all that.
Before you were born,
Before I was born, yeah.
Okay.
And then she, fell out of that in the 70s. And then by the time I was born, she was back a Christian again.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about your dad's side?
My dad's side, don't know as much. I do know that they were more of the African, spiritual tradition.
Is that like hematology?
No. Some will say there's a connection, right? Some would argue that there's a connection because there are many signs, historical, archaeological, and even archaeological signs that point to a long, deep connection between Nigerland and Egypt. Okay. However, it was more of what we call the Ifa tradition, which is a traditional Yoruba religion that was, as the tradition, the narrations say, was brought from a man named Oduduwa.
Conceptually, have you looked into that religion? Is that religion something? Because in Islam we had this idea of every nation receives a prophet or a messenger. Like, is there a possibility that religion has that kind of tradition in that sense, or we just don't know enough to say?
I don't know enough to say. I do know that Oduduwa was not considered. Some may elevate him to that level, or whatever, but that's disputed, right? We do know that he was. Most people agree that he came from. He wasn't from Nigerland. He had actually moved from the east. Some say he came from Mecca. Some say he came from Baghdad. Some say he came from Yemen. And then he brought what we call the current Yoruba culture. He was actually Arabi, as they say from some from the narrations I've learned come from the Yarub clan.
Okay.
And that's where Yoruba comes from. And he was a guy who brought a lot of spiritual energy, military tactics to defend the land from aggression, tactics and or not tactics, but new ways of growing food, making clothing, revolutionize a way of clothing. That's why if you look at most of Nigerian clothing, whether you're Muslim or Christian or not or traditional, you wear very long, modest clothing. Like that was part of what Oduduwa brought. To Nigerland.
I got you.
And so the long traditional, Nigerian, gear that you see or outfits you see, some call them agbada or those are basically the thobe.
Right.
Oduduwa brought. But the Ifa tradition, what I know, I've studied a little bit, so I'm not an expert. So anybody take me with a grain of salt. If there's something I say wrong or you may disagree with, I understand. I'm not an expert. This is just my own understanding. Is that there are basically 12 what we call manifestations of God, which is called Olurun.
Okay.
And contrary to common belief, most people think over in the West that a lot of these African traditional religions are pagan. And the spirituality in most African traditional religions actually acknowledges Tawheed. This is why when a lot of Islamic empires grew in West Africa, they lived in peace and tandem with a lot of the Africans who didn't practice Islam because they still honor Tawheed.
Tawheed being understand the
belief
oneness of
in
God.
oneness in God.
Right.
And Ifa has Tawheed.
Okay.
It's just the 12 Orishas are kind of like 99 names. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but these 12 Orishas are connected to different parts of the calendar.
Gotcha.
And they have different there's different things that you appeal to for certain aspects in life that you need or want. But yeah, there's even some Muslims in Nigeria that still practice Ifas from a traditional perspective, and they see no conflict because it's their own culture, and it still honors Tawheed, and there's no conflict with Islam.
Do me a quick favor real quick. Check your phone and check the weather. I just feel some raindrops. It's not going to start raining, is it?
Let me look.
Because if it does, we have to like pack it up and resume. I didn't see any rain in the forecast.
Me neither.
I saw all sun.
So
is it common
right now? It says sunset and it just says cloudy.
Do you get like random drops?
It says partly cloudy.
You get random drops here because of the being close to the lake?
Yeah, I think that might be it.
If it just like that should be fine.
Because it seems like right now it says partly cloudy for Chicago. Yeah, but it's really cloudy here right downtown because we're right next to the lake.
Okay, so just like it might be just some lake effect stuff with some little drops here and there. Okay, cool. All right, so getting on with it. If it starts pouring though, we gotta like
if it gets a little worse, we'll move on.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say is so you got what was your impression of religion as a kid?
I always believed in God. I always knew there was an all-powerful God. I knew that that was really what it was centered around. Okay. I can't really describe it. I just knew that there was a God.
Right.
And I knew that that he had angels that protected me.
Right. But you never got into the whole like Jesus Christ, worship Jesus or anything like that?
When I was a kid, I heard about Jesus and I was told that, but you only know what you're told. But then as you start to get older, you start to ask, he sent our Father who art in heaven. Then is he the same person? Well, let me back up and say, in the church I grew up in, they didn't say that Jesus was God.
Really?
The church I grew up in, that's not all churches have the same perspective.
Okay.
The church I grew up in, they believe Jesus was the Son of God. So like God's the Father, then Jesus is the Son, and then you have the Holy Spirit, or they call the Holy Ghost.
But so all Christianity in general will say that, but then they would also say that he's both the Son of God, but also God at the same time.
Well, there's some that try to tell me that, right?
Yeah.
And as I started studying more, as I got older, and I was like, that just didn't make sense. But him being the Son of God as a kid, okay, that could make sense, and then, we're all kind of sons of God too, but maybe he's like the best son or something. I don't know. But, I did see some sort of divine nature in him, right? He was able to, perform these miracles or what have you. And I prayed in Jesus' name, and I asked, what would Jesus do?
Right.
And I believed very strongly in Jesus. Mm-hmm. Right. However, there's a conflict with this whole mystery, no proof, no evidence, no, not much of anything. And then being told to just, as they say, I was taught to, they'd say, there's a common saying the pastor used to say, I heard in a lot of churches, was, we walk by faith, not by sight. So certain things that don't make sense, you're just not supposed to ask, right? If you ask questions, then that's considered to be kufar.
Or a weakness to faith.
It's like kufar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's disbelief. You start asking questions.
Right.
You don't ask questions. You just believe.
But if you're gonna ask somebody like, okay, well, don't I need like something? So for example, let's say, all right, I'm gonna say, all right, Abiola, that like tree over there, I believe that tree is God. I just have faith. Like, how do you get around that then? I'm like, well, the question was like, well, how do you get there?
Yeah, how do you reconcile that?
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of what it was. I started to ask questions.
That's a very simplistic example, I know. Yeah. I'm sure my Christian listeners will be like, come on, bro, that ain't that simple. But
it definitely is not that simple because the thing is that he has a special connection to God that they said we can't really understand. And I get that, right?
Right.
However, there was a disconnect. Human being, is doing divine things. How is this so? And how is he so different? There's just questions, but it just didn't make sense. But I didn't know how to articulate it as a kid.
Yeah.
By the time I got to being about 17, 18, 19, I was able to start articulating and start reading and stuff. And then when I, got a chance to actually read through the Quran for itself, I started to ask more questions. And then when I came to the pastor and to the minister, right, they were like, well, Jesus is God. And I was like, huh? Really? And he was like, yeah. And I said, nah, that don't make no sense. What I was reading the Quran actually made more sense, right? That he's a human being.
And you had read the Bible as well, I
had read the Bible in its entirety. Twice.
Old Testament and New Testament?
Yes.
Okay.
I read it for myself. I took the time and read it for myself. I read the New Testament multitudes of times and studied it, from a scholarly perspective. I'm not a scholar, but my own personal study, right? And my own personal journey. I was about 18, 19, 20. And when I read the Quran, there were certain gaps from me reading the Bible that I just couldn't reconcile. When I read the Quran, it seemed to fill those gaps, and it made things clear. And it actually, the Quranic interpretation of Jesus, to me, just made a lot more rational sense. That he's a human being who is endowed with the ability to do these things by God, the same way how God endowed Moses to do what he did, to split the Red Sea, to throw the staff and it turned into a snake. All those signs. We can go on many different prophets, right?
Right.
Jesus, the similitude of Jesus was like that of Adam. When Allah created him from dust, he said, be, and it is.
Right.
To me, that made a lot more sense. Right. And it made me actually believe in Jesus more. Like Islam, when I read the Quran, it strengthened my faith in Jesus. It strengthened my belief in Jesus. It strengthened my belief in Allah, because you're able to bring the spiritual feeling and know, like that in the back of your head, you know that there's something beyond you that you can't comprehend.
Yeah.
And it was brought and merged with the rational side. And when you bring them two together, it just became a lot more crystal clear. And before, when I was a Christian, when I maybe had, 3 to 5% doubt in the back of my head, Islam brought it to 0.
Okay. Cool. I want to segue a little bit into something else that I know about you. So you're an entrepreneur. I would consider, right? Would you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
I would consider myself an entrepreneur.
I'm really curious about your interest in technology and engineering. Were you a kid growing up? You like tinkering with stuff?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Always taking stuff apart, lights apart, light switches, sinks, microwaves, VCRs, televisions, radios. And whenever stuff got broke, I was always a person that could fix it because I could open it up, especially the VCR when it used to eat the tape.
Yeah.
I used to always fix it because I could just open the VCR and, and I was like 7, 8 years old doing that.
How important do you think, so, they had this idea. So you have a mechanical engineering degree?
Yeah.
I have a mechanical engineering degree.
My man.
Okay. I would say you're mechanically inclined. I don't think I am. I'll explain that a little bit. Because I was never the type. So real quick, my background is I always tell people that I'm the engineer who got forced into doing engineering because but I have a liberal arts mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff I was interested in as a kid was like all social studies. Like I loved history. I loved
me too.
But I was into science really young, elementary school.
Right.
But by the time I got into middle school, high school, that love of science got stripped from me. I don't know what happened, but it kind of disappeared. Like the science I was into as a kid, elementary school was like, all right, like marine biology, I was into dinosaurs. I remember.
Too.
You remember the dinosaur name? You knew the Latin names too.
Yeah.
I forgot all that stuff. Like,
me too.
You knew Triceratops, and then you knew the Latin name.
Were you into like the astronomy and stuff too?
Yeah, I was into that.
Yeah, studying the planets and all that. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I kind of experienced the same thing. Like in middle school, I kind of lost interest as well. It kind of got dull.
Okay.
And then even in the beginning of high school.
I think it's the school. I don't know, the school system. Like, do you go to public schools growing up?
Yeah.
So I don't know the public school system. If it's something about, because in 6th grade, I remember 6th grade, I was still real interested in like school. Like, I remember I had an African American social studies teacher, right? Mm-hmm. And then she was just really about me because I was so much into like I was starting to get into like interested in Malcolm X. Because that was about the time the Malcolm X movie came out, and they took us. The Islamic Center took the kids to go see Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. And then I had previously done I had written papers on like Muhammad Ali in elementary school. So, she was really fascinated by that. And I was like, all right, well, she put me in positions to like learn more. But then as you get older, I got more into like following sports as a fan and, go through puberty. Now, man, start noticing girls and something about fashion and like you got to look fresh and all that stuff became like I feel like it almost became a distraction, right? You let it become a distraction, and then school became more about like, I remember my dad from the 7th grade would be like, you start studying for the SAT. I took the PSAT for the first time in 6th grade because my dad was like getting on my case about it. He was like, you do like 1,500 out of 1,600. Remember it's 1,600 back then, right? 1,500. He's like, you got to get 1,500 or something so you can go to like some good college. And then I ended up with like a 1,330, but which is disappointing, but I came to find out later that was a pretty good score. That wasn't like something to sleep on, but I think the learning end of it just got stripped from me. You know what I mean? I don't know if that I don't know what circumstances or what. It's only now as an adult have I started to like get back into as I'm doing podcasting and stuff and getting interested in things. It's like almost like I wish I could have done college again.
Huh.
And like because
still could.
I could go back and get another degree, right? But it's like, I mean, with a family, with like wife and kids, it's like, okay, I can go read this stuff, but like to commit to another degree is a big commitment, right? So yeah, but I don't think I was ever the guy that was into tinkering with stuff. Like I like Lego.
I was curious.
Okay.
I was inquisitive, and I used to always try to build things. Like I was building forts and trying to make flight mechanisms, for self-flight. I started a flight project at 4 years old, and that program lasted about 3 years. And then after that, after enough bruises and bumps, I went on and scrapped that program. And
so you were trying to make you were trying to like do a Wright Brothers kind of thing?
Yeah, but my own personal flight.
Okay.
Mechanism.
Okay.
And that I could just kind of float around. I was really more about trying to get gliding going on first. I was just trying to at least just get the gliding thing settled.
Uh-huh.
And just I didn't have the tools and the know-how. So I was always trying to invent things. I used to watch this show on Discovery Channel called Invention.
Okay.
That was one of my favorite shows. And I was always fascinated with that. And then it kind of started to fade off a little bit in junior high. Same thing, distraction, girls, sports, and all that.
Yeah.
Same experience, right? Especially, like 8th grade, 9th grade. And then in high school, they started doing these Mars missions.
Okay.
The Mars rover missions. And I was just captivated by it because I was always interested in space. And then seeing probes around my time, going to Mars, and NASA used to send pictures back and feeds and video back every day, uploads. Yeah. And this is right around when the internet had first started. Mm-hmm. So we had the internet, and I used to spend like all day long just watching the videos of the Martian surface. Like I was just fascinated with just the ability to see another planet. Mm-hmm. From, it was just incredible. It's incredible. And I started to say, I started to ask myself, or tell myself, I want to be a part of something like that. Because I was reading that they were going to send their first manned missions to Mars in 2007.
Yeah.
See, that didn't ever. Well, I ain't gonna say that was a lie. Different things happened, like 9/11,
right?
And NASA took a huge hit in funding. But yeah, they were going to go to Mars and a manned mission to Mars, and I was like, either I want to go to Mars or I want to be a part of that mission. So I started looking up what type of career would I need to take, or what I need to take to become an astronaut or to work on space programs.
Okay, so mechanical engineering is kind of like you could do aero, but ME is a kind of degree that's kind of like all encompassing, right?
I actually started with aerospace.
Okay,
and then when I transferred to Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, Pitt didn't have an aerospace program, but I was cool with that because I chose mechanical with more of the with the focus, more of the classes that overlap with aerospace, like thermodynamics and heat transfer, fluid dynamics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I put more emphasis on that.
Okay.
In grad school.
Okay. So did you grow up in Chicago, or you grew up in Chicago?
I grew up everywhere, man. I grew up like a gypsy, man. I was born in Chicago. I lived in Springfield. I lived in Iowa. I lived back in Chicago. I lived back in Springfield. I lived back in Iowa. And then, I
actually have been to Springfield because for a close one of my dad's high school college buddies lives in Springfield. So we took a road trip out there. Bangladeshi uncle that lives out in Springfield. Yeah.
Southern Illinois is a different, it's a different world.
Is Springfield considered Southern Illinois, or is it Central?
I mean, from a Chicago perspective, anything south of Interstate 80 is Southern Illinois, right?
Yeah, like Joliet.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's like on the border.
Right.
It's the outer rim.
Right. So, like, you went and got your bachelor's, you get your master's, you end up working for, like, a corporation in like a plant, right?
Yes, I was working for, well, yes and no, but yes, essentially. There's a nuance. I was working for a consulting firm.
Okay.
It was actually the largest black-owned engineering firm of its kind in the nation. It was called Chester Engineers, and I was in the industrial projects division, and I was working on mainly steel and oil projects, or I should say projects that dealt with oil refining, in particular water and wastewater, fresh water, wastewater. And then the steel, the economy took a nosedive. Steel industry tanked very quickly right after I got into the professional world, but oil was still humming. And so that's why I kind of, earned my stripes as an engineer and as a professional in the oil industry, doing a lot of refinery projects, pretty big, significant refinery projects that I enjoyed a tremendous amount of success in, alhamdulillah. And that really just set the trajectory for my professional career. When I was working for Chester Engineers, the president of the company, who's also another Yoruba man named Bob Agbade, he took me under his wing. And, he saw things in me that I didn't even see in myself. And he said, I see in you a leader, and, we want to groom you for leadership, either to be one of the next young leaders to, to pass the baton on from us to you, or, eventually, you start to learn and you go start, your own company and do your own thing.
So is that the first time that, the idea got in your head that I could actually go do my own company?
Yeah, first I was more on the PhD track. When I was in school and grad school and all that, I was just in school and
because you just love learning.
Yeah,
and that's the one thing I remember. One of my earlier conversations with you was like, you were asking me these questions about steel, and I was like, man, I don't even ask those questions because you were like, I was like, because it's kind of like, so I want to tie back to the whole thing about like being mechanically inclined or being able to tinker with stuff, right? It seems to me that like the way I approach my career is like it's like my job, right? It's my job. It's what I get paid to do. It supports my lifestyle. And for me, like making podcasts and talking to people and picking their brains is what I love to do. And that's my passion. But for you, you've been fortunate. It seems to me like your career is your passion.
Yeah. So, because the thing, exactly. Because, my mom was actually into the arts.
Okay.
I grew up in an artsy musical world. I couldn't really sing, couldn't really dance. I wasn't best drawer unless it was straight lines and squares.
Yeah.
And I grew up around all that arts and soul, but I was just more of a brainy type of person. And, I you could say mechanically inclined, but the reason why I became an engineer as opposed to like an actual craftsman or a mechanic or something like that works with my hands is because I quickly learned as a kid from all my failed projects that I'm not really too mechanically inclined, but my mind spatially, I'm mechanically inclined when it comes to thinking in spatial 3D.
Okay.
I can see things that don't exist. Not like in a crazy way, but I can see a vision. You can show me a drawing.
Yeah.
You can talk to me about something, and I can envision it in 3D. And usually when I think things out, that's why I like grease boards and stuff like that, because I think in pictures.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that can be acquired? That mindset?
I looked at that as a God-given talent that I capitalized on.
Okay. Yeah, so it's almost like people ask me, like, hey, Maheen, how do you become, like, a good networker? How do you network with people? I'm like, I don't know. I just do it, right?
Well, you can, and, I mean, there's certain things you can learn, and you can learn how to be more visually, all these things you can pick up on, but there's certain things that we're just given, certain abilities, right? I believe fundamentally and wholeheartedly, and this from an entrepreneur perspective and a personal perspective, that every single person that's been alive and alive today has a purpose in life that was given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mm-hmm. Life is really about discovering that purpose, and enjoyment in life is about feeling like you fulfilled your purpose, whatever it is. And a lot of times your purpose is connected to your talents.
Yeah.
And I believe that every person is given a special God-given talent that gives them the ability naturally to be better than 90% of the population out there. And if you take that God-given talent and you study and focus and become an expert in it to the point where you know and understand better than, I'm going to let this go by. We're right by a hospital.
I'm just happy it didn't rain.
Yeah, me too.
That would have been bad.
Yeah, sorry about that. We had to do the outdoor podcast, man. We've been all cooped up for months.
And they're probably looking at us like, why y'all got sunglasses on?
And we're still distant. It's still daytime.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you take something that 90% better than or you can do 90% better than the population, you study it, you become an expert at it, you refine it, and sharpen your skill to the point where you're better than 95% of the population, now you're ready to capitalize. Mm-hmm. And that is how, whether it's monetarily or whatever you're getting out of life, right? That is really what life is about. That's how you do things. And in America, oftentimes you can use those talents to capitalize on. Well, I won't even say America, but in a lot of societies, I can't say every society, but at least in the society that I live in, I feel like that you can make the most of it. Now, are there structural things that make it more difficult for people to realize those dreams in society that exist? Absolutely. Absolutely. But however, whatever framework that you're in, you're serving a purpose, and you got to find that purpose.
So you believe, so what are your thoughts on that whole phrase, jack of all trades, master of none?
What I think of jack of all trades and master of none?
The idea, because it seems like if somebody is like singular, like what I've noticed is that in real successful people, sometimes it feels like people are like into different things, but they always seem, but when you break it down, it seems like they started with one thing. They focused on one thing. They had singularity of focus.
Right.
And then mastered that, and then as you get good at something, you can do it really fast. Yeah. Efficiently, and you have more time, and then you can dedicate more time. I think that's, but there seems to be this thing where, I consider myself jack of all. Like in my career, I'm like that, right? Because because I can do, like I don't think if I look at my own career, as just what I do for my organization as an engineer, I can supervise people. I can know enough to interact with customers. I do campus recruiting, so I know how to recruit engineers. Mm-hmm. I know basic like operation stuff, but I'm not like the guru at any one thing. You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm not that guy where, all right, that they're gonna call, that you get called for anything specific, like, you're the go-to. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's what happens with a lot of mechanical engineers in the professional world, because it's very broad, and when you get into, me and you both share a common background in an industrial sector, right?
Right.
And oftentimes we're not asked to be the expert. We're asked to pretty much pull together the team of experts towards a greater common cause, right? And so to carry off, I don't use the term piggyback, but the camelback, we're Muslims, right? Yeah. The camelback off what you're saying, like for me, yes, I did start off working on one thing. And as you get better and better and better, your influence grows and grows and grows, right? And you start getting into leadership, and you start to see how, especially when you're in a industry like that deals with engineering or infrastructure or building or technology, as you get better and better and better, the influence grows, and the stuff that you do, you start to notice and feel the impact in many other different areas outside of what, you're good at. And then you start to learn a little bit about a lot of different things. And then you become the jack of all trades. Jack of all trades, a master of none, right?
Right.
Because you learn a little bit about those other things, but you still have that root, that stem.
Yeah.
That was your foundation, right? Mm-hmm. That got you to where you are, and you build upon that. And then and that's what I mean by about fulfilling your purpose. You have your foundation, and then there's, through what you're good at, that's how you impact other aspects of society, other aspects of life, and things like that.
Yeah. For sure. Talk me through the process where you went from working for somebody else to like starting doing your own thing.
The process was not, like I said, when I started working at Chester, I started looking at things at business. My first introduction into business from school wasn't from the perspective of being an employee. It was from the perspective of being an owner, being in leadership.
Okay.
That's how I was looking at the business. So oftentimes when I was operating as a young guy first coming in, I was operating, always on the behalf of the owner, on the behalf of, what's in the best interest of the business, mm-hmm. and playing my part towards that. And I felt like if I wanted to get into that, I needed to earn my stripes. I needed to become more mechanically inclined. I needed to understand the business more. I needed to understand construction more. I needed to understand design more, leadership more, coordination, all these aspects that come into running projects, mm-hmm. right? And so I just felt like I needed to take time to earn my stripes, learn the business, learn the industry, and then when my time comes, I'll be ready. And I, always thought about the idea and wanted it, but I just didn't feel like I was ready.
Okay.
And then as I started getting more mature in my business, and as the tide started to change, when the oil industry really started to take a nosedive, and I started, being more involved with the Urban League and the Metro Board, and, I was a business innovation chair over there, and started getting more involved with community-based things. I started to develop more of I always had the desire to want to be able to give back, but I felt like I needed to get myself together first.
Right.
I need to help myself before how can I really go give back legitimately if I can't really walk when I'm talking?
Right.
So I felt like I needed to get myself together. And then around that time, I felt like it was time. I started to develop a desire to figure out how I could utilize my talents, my skills, my know-how towards not just the benefit of large corporations, but to, my own community and people around me, things that were directly impactful. How can I use the talents I have to directly impact causes that mean something to me?
Yeah.
And so that's when I started getting involved with the Metro Board. And then through that,
what is the Metro Board?
Metro Board is like the Urban League of Young Professionals. It's a young professional wing of the Urban League. It's actually the first chapter for the Urban League Young Professionals.
Okay.
And I got involved with that. My friend was the president. He's still my friend today, my good brother, Jason Johnson. And, in the Metro Board, being a business innovation chair, working on promoting entrepreneurship in the Black community to help recycle money in the Black community. We're reading and learning a lot about from Dr. Claude Alexander or Dr. Claude about recycling money in your community. And we built this app called the MetroCard app, which was basically an app that black businesses in Chicago could sign into, and it would be like a registry, essentially. And then they would have access to the 8,000 members in the Metro Board. Because we had been doing research, and we had discovered that black young professionals between the ages of 21 and 40 are more likely to support black businesses than any other demographic in America. So what we wanted to do was give black businesses access to that demographic, and us in the Metro Board, we had the network. And so we built this app called the MetroCard. And me and Jason Trish, I was like the project manager. Jason Trish and did a lot of the technology aspect and a lot of the programming.
Sure.
The actual, mechanically inclined stuff from a computer aspect.
The software.
On the software side. Right. And I pretty much ran the project, jack of all trades.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, that was a very cool thing. And from that, I started getting more into the entrepreneurial network. Black entrepreneurial network in Chicago, and being more tapped in, starting to learn and listen about how people started their business. I started to think about, how I could start my own business. And I got to a point where, the oil company had tanked. I got hired at this new job that was a aluminum company. And I was really happy about going there, got a nice raise, everything was great. And I got in there, and, the company was just, I hate to say it, was just extremely racist and Islamophobic.
Wow.
And once they found out that I was a Muslim, it was like within a month I was being, let go. Because I didn't, and the reason I was told by my boss is that I'm not a good cultural fit.
Really? They're that blatant about it.
Yeah. And I was in a tight situation, and they basically said, look, we're going to give you 3.5 months of severance, but you can't sue us.
Okay.
And shoot, I had to survive, man. So I was like, let me just take that severance and just keep it moving.
Right.
So I took the severance. I went and took a little trip to California, bought myself a laptop in L.A., sat on the beach, started working on my business plan. And within 6 weeks, I had actually filed my articles of incorporation. And within 6 weeks, I was already working at another company. But it was just, the company was cool. I appreciate what they gave to me and all that other stuff. But there really just wasn't much to go from there, And, when you don't have the leverage, when you get, you got more leverage getting a job when you already have a job.
Right.
But if you don't have a job, you don't have the same type of leverage. And I was kind of put into a pigeonhole situation. But I was useful for the company. It was useful for me at that time. I started my company, and I started getting proposals and opportunities from people that, they knew the type of work I was doing, project management at O'Hare Airport, doing, aviation, managing aviation projects. And people in the community were coming to me with opportunities, and I was bringing it to my company that I was working at, and it just didn't seem like it was going anywhere, but people kept coming to me. And I said, man, maybe I could just, why am I going to banging my head up trying to get these guys to do it? I could just do this myself.
Getting permission, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just went on and commissioned myself, and, got some, contracts going, worked on my company part-time, treated it like a second job, like a part-time job. And over about the space of about a year, it just kind of just started growing. And then next thing you know, just got to a point where the job was stifling my company, and I felt like I could take the company further than my job could take me. And I had to choose, either stifle the company and try to work it out and hang in there with this job, or, go with the company. So I took that bet on myself and let my job go and walked out like a man. They said, "Why are you quitting?" You quitting? I said, "Yeah." They said, what company are you going to? I said, Allied Innovation Group. They said, "Who's that?" I said, "It's a construction company." And they said, "Oh yeah, I never heard of them." I was like, "Yeah, it's my own company. I started it myself, and I already got a project, a contract to work on a new project to build a new fresh market in Inglewood, and that's what I'm going to do." And they said, "Oh man, that's pretty respectful, And I said, "Thanks, and let's stay in contact.
Yeah.
Let's hopefully we'll cross paths again where we can maybe work together and develop synergy and partner on some things. Thank you for everything you've given me, and this is the direction I'm going." And I walked out. I felt honorably with my head high.
Yeah. When you're like, so when engineers, when I first, one of the first questions I've never asked you this is like, how do you get like projects? Because you let's say I work for a big steel company, right? And you're a small guy, or how do you get the attention, or do you target like, or there's a certain demographic you go after first? Like, I guess going out when you're trying to get clientele when you're brand new, how does that process look like?
I think in our industry, it's a lot about who you know and getting to know people, right? Developing relationships.
Yeah.
And you develop relationships by showing true and genuine interest in first the individual and what they're doing and what really impacts their life. And if you find commonality, like remember when you met me first, I was asking you all those questions.
Yeah.
I was trying to understand what you do.
Right.
I was, and it shared some commonality with what I do.
Right.
So I have interest in that.
Right.
And by having that natural interest in what people do, you build and develop relationships. You develop bonds. And for me, just going around, getting to meet people, getting to know people, building connections, understanding what they do, letting people understand what I do, opportunities just start to come up. We start talking ideas, and then, I say, "Hey, you know what? We could probably use you on this here." And then sometimes there's a little bit of negotiation, and this and that. It may not be instant. It may take some time.
Right.
Well, these are things that are, nurtured over time.
Right.
And to me, business is all about relationships. I'm not really in this as about trying to get one project and make as much money I can and move on. And, for me, it's about relationships. It's about the impact. And I learned this concept also from Dangote, the richest black man on the planet. He's a Muslim, Nigerian Muslim.
Yeah.
And he said, they asked him on Al Jazeera, he was being interviewed. They said, did you ever, have a goal to be the richest black man in Africa, the richest African or richest black man on the planet? Do you aspire to be the richest man in the world? And he said, "No, I never aspired to be the richest. I only aspired to be the most impactful." I thought that was powerful. And I felt the same way. Like, I just want to make an impact. When I got into business, I wanted to make an impact in things I cared about. And in similar ways to Dangote, he's further along than me, but he's somebody that I definitely look up to and follow. He wanted to make an impact in Nigeria from an infrastructure point of view. I want to make an impact to black communities, brown communities, neglected communities, and even some communities beyond, hopefully, in other parts of the world that didn't have access to modern infrastructure, improving the standards of living. Because I feel like when you have a better living, when you live better, you feel better about yourself. You feel like there's more hope. And when you have more hope in life, you start to engage in activities that are much more constructive. So I feel like my purpose is about building and instilling hope in people by inspiring people, by motivating people. And a big part of that is realized by what we're building and what we're creating. And I got involved with this nonprofit organization called the Inner City Muslim Action Network. And they always had this desire and plan with this corner store campaign to, build bonds and between the black and the Arab and, the brown and Desi community and be a source of healing through some of the problems and challenges that's came about in an interaction, and really to help everyone understand, Arabs, Desis, African Americans, that we were brought together from a divine way, from a common experience, from a common oppressor. And we need to unite in that. And alhamdulillah, like, through Islam, that has brought a lot of us together,
right,
in somewhat of a way, sure. Right? There's also, some, siloing and all that, it exists, but overall, that's what's brought us together. Mm-hmm. And this new corner store was to create a new model, right, that served as a model for other Arabs and Desis and others who are putting stores in black communities, to start putting stores that are not sources of death and destruction in the community, where there's gangbanging and drug selling and alcohol and all that being sold, but making a store that, creating a store that sells more fresh produce, halal meat, food that you can actually bring to your home and cook. Mm-hmm. If you look in a lot of black communities, it's a food desert.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to eat. There's only, fast food and junk food in the corner stores, mm-hmm. or, and liquor. There's not many grocery stores. There's not many, train or bus stops. So, and then people don't, are poor. They don't have as many cars, so they only have access to where they can a lot of times walk to the corner store. The corner stores are really one of the main, I would say, mercantile exchange points mm-hmm. in the black community, right? So maybe we can use this avenue as a way to create a model, right, to give African Americans access, and brown people, other brown people, Latinos, more access to more healthier, wholesome food. Because mm-hmm. we know that health is a big problem in the black community, right? Mm-hmm. And part of how you attack health from the front end proactively is through, nutrition. And mm-hmm. also, there's exercise and all that, and, good lifestyle living, but through nutrition. So creating a store, building a store, a space that has fresh food, fresh produce, no alcohol, no tobacco, no lottery and gambling or anything like that, and just something that actually provides something that really benefits the people. Mm-hmm. This is a concept that they've been working on, building traction, trying to get traction, getting this going. And I was brought in from a project management construction perspective, from someone who knew how to develop the business case.
Yep.
To raise the money,
yeah,
to make something like this happen. And I was brought in as a consultant to create that business case. We developed a pro forma. We did, our company, that's what our company started off doing: cost projections, budgetary projections, also accompanied with estimates. So it's a budgetary projection that we had to estimate, which is I would say capital projection, how much it's going to cost, what the investment is going to be, and then looked at other revenue models from other corner stores that were similar to what we're looking at, because there are some, not all Arabs and Desis are bad, bad actors. There are some that are good actors, right? That we were able to use some, that we had partnered with. We got information from them to use their profit loss statements, profit models, to be able to develop, a cost projection of how much money could be generated by this type of store.
Sure.
From that, we were able to show that it was a viable model.
Nice. Okay.
And from it being a viable model, that is what laid the foundation for us to raise money. I mean, just recently, we just got the final piece passed where, our case was presented to City Council. It was well received by City Council. We just got the NOF grant, $1.5 million, which is like the last and major final piece to really fund this project while we're in construction. And it all came through. There was actually literally aldermen congratulating the alderman whose district our store is going to be built on, saying, man, I wish this was being built in my district, And that really is that was an anchor project that, I started with my company. And it was me actually pursuing the desire to want to utilize my skills and talents, similar to which is actually similar to yours, in a way that benefits the black community, in a way that brings heals divisions between the black and brown community, and something that benefits the Islamic community.
Right. So it's almost like there's always like you have a talent that it's your financial means, right?
Right.
But you can find an intersection where you can impact people too,
right,
at the same time, right? And
right.
I think people got to get creative. What would you say to somebody who's So one thing I know about engineers, at least my colleagues at least, we're very comfortable. Like, we work for a company, secure job, good benefits.
Yeah.
It's just comfortable to stay there. We don't want to like go and do our own thing. But let's say you might have a knack for it, and sometimes I don't know if you know some like I don't know if you know Ed Lattimore. Ed Lattimore, he's an influencer out in Pittsburgh. He's actually talks about how like sometimes we don't push ourselves to our limits, and therefore we really not growing.
Well, you know what? I was an engineer. I never felt comfortable. It's a comfortable job, comfortable lifestyle. But, most black Americans, black professional men, there's research that shows 70% of black professional men do not feel comfortable in their roles. 70% feel uncomfortable. Research shows less than 20% of white men feel uncomfortable in their job. Now, there's some jobs I felt one company. There's a few companies I felt comfortable in. The last company I felt comfortable in, the oil industry tanked.
Yeah,
and now that company's been bought out, and basically everybody I worked with, all the way up to the CEO, has been let go.
Right.
So, in the blink of an eye, anything can change. You can't ever get too comfortable, right? You should always want more. So I realized that yes, it's comfortable. But I can't be too comfortable because anything could change. Look, COVID changed.
Yep.
I'm so glad that I was in this the space I'm in now because I was able to continue to move on through this disaster. I wasn't hit as hard as everybody else.
I see you've been busy. I've been seeing your social media, your Instagram stories, and seeing you've been working on projects.
Yeah, it's busy. It's very busy. I'm very thankful. Mm-hmm. One thing is the construction industry though does lag about 12 months. After behind the regular market. So even though when things are crashing, the reason why we're going because we already just had stuff like the ship had already sailed, bro.
Right.
So the projects had to continue.
But you have that versatility because you have a background in oil and gas and done metals before.
Yeah.
You can always kind of work in that realm. Look, I want to ask you a final question. This is a personal question for myself.
Yeah.
All right. So right now, I've been in my company 12 and a half years, right?
Yeah.
It might be a good time to make a move. So I'm looking at a couple different options, and I want to get your take on the kind of. So I might have an opportunity to move into something like a more high tech field, like medical device companies maybe that's working on COVID-19 stuff, and and I've got a background. It's a different industry, but a big company in that sector. But it would be a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy. I'd be another cog in the machine. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, but it'd be secure, good pay and all that. Good pay, good benefits, all that, right? I could go to another company that's very small, maybe like 15 employees. And one skill I want to learn, I want to pick up on is business development sales, really sales, right? They have this organization has very little as far as a sales group goes, right? And so they're willing to take a
You want to work with me?
So
you want to sell with us?
So you
want to do business development with the Allied Innovation Group? I know you're asking this right now, but keep on with the question because it's sounding really good. Continue on. I'm listening.
So there's an organization that I'm speaking with that they're looking for somebody. They make like precision gauges, right?
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're like, we want to ramp up our sales team, and right now the owners are doing the sales.
Yeah.
Like they're and I was like, okay, well. Granted, I don't know anything. I'm going to learn on the fly. I'm going to be learning how to make I've done a little bit of I guess you call sales funnels for recruiting Ohio State engineers in a way, right? So that's one thing. Or the other thing is I could go work in because technology is like software. That's the other thing. Like people are, making a complete switch and just getting into selling software, right? So from your vantage point, the thing about the pro about going and working for almost like a tech like a startup company, sell precision gauges where they've been around for 60 years, so they're established, their product established in the market, but they haven't been growing because people just know to come to them, but they're not hunting. You know what I'm saying? Out of those options, I know you just proposed the fourth option to me on the spot.
I know, right?
But let's take your fourth option out and we can talk about that offline.
We'll take that off. We'll take that off the table for right now.
But out of those three options, we're looking for a big software company that has great pay, great benefits, make a killing. and learning sales, because again, that I learned sales there, and that working for a place like that, you have a sales. You going in, like I would learn the sales management system, right? But if I go to a small company like this engineering shop that makes gauges, they have no management system. It's like I'd have to go.
You are the management system.
I'd have to go pick up on books and just go.
You would develop it.
Yeah, I would develop. I would create it myself.
You would be the founder of it.
Right, exactly. So I stay in manufacturing, but make a sector change into something a little bit more high tech, another big company. What out of those options? When you assess those options, what are the things you would look at?
So that's a lot.
And keep in mind
that is a lot. So that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Number one.
Right.
Be thankful. That's a very good problem to have. Right.
Right.
So the thing, the big company, you have the structure, you have the support there, but you there may be a chance that you just might, as you mentioned, become another cog in a machine.
Right.
Just another number. But it's comfortable, and you learn how to do things in a big system where you got a lot of resources, which I've started to find out is a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
Or you go work in a smaller company that doesn't have a lot of resources. You're going to do a lot more. You're going to have a lot more broader scope. In a larger company, you're going to have a much narrower scope.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing a lot of the same thing.
And I'm not selling it in the large company. Large company, right. I'm doing the engineering stuff that I've always been doing.
Right.
So I'm not really. I'm learning a new industry. I'm learning a new sector. I'm probably learning a few different things, but I'm not learning because if I go into sales, that's something I've never done.
Right.
So I've already done the engineering thing for 12 years. Now going into sales, completely different beast.
Yeah, it is a different beast. However, sales requires product knowledge.
Right.
And so number one, I would say the first thing I would think about is which one do I have the most knowledge in?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if they're all about the same, then which one, grabs your interest? Which one speaks more to your passion?
Yeah.
Which one are you the most interested in?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next part I'll look at is which culture do you think you'll fit in the best in?
Mm-hmm.
Which one will fit best? Because how old are you now, man?
38.
38.
Yeah.
Right? You're a married man.
Yeah.
You have children.
Yep.
And as we get older, right, we start to get more established in our career and comfortable. All that hustle and bustle, we start to want to just live our life, right, and spend time with our family and focus on other things and really kind of do what we want to do, right?
Right.
So which one is going to afford you the best lifestyle? And what I mean by lifestyle, I mean work-life balance.
Right.
Right? Which one is going to give you, if I was asking myself, for me personally, this is me speaking, my opinion, which one is going to give me the most freedom? What am I mean by freedom? Freedom in now I'm doing what I want to do, so I feel more free.
Yeah.
Now I have more work-life balance. I can maybe spend more time with my kids or my wife or my family or hobbies or all that.
Yep.
Right? I'll ask myself that. What gives me the most work-life balance? Which one has the best culture that I'm going to fit into? Which one do I have the most product knowledge in and expertise in that I can be successful in, right? You want to lean, I feel like life is about leaning into your talents and steering away from things that highlight your weaknesses. When you lean into your talents, you're leaning into your purpose.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you're steering into your weaknesses, you're steering away from your purpose. You're really steering away from the sirat.
Right.
You're on the dalala.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't want to do that. So I would say that.
Okay.
Now, when you're measuring the different companies, a larger company, you're most likely going to be doing more something narrower.
Yeah.
Narrower scope.
Yep.
Plush, easily taken care of, but you might not have a nice office. You might be in a cubicle. You might not have as comfortable work conditions in some ways. And then you might work in a smaller company. You might get a nice office, comfortable office. And as the company grows, you will grow with it.
Right.
And you would be the father of that division.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of room for growth. And then the other one, can't really recall if you said it's big or large. Maybe
software.
It's medium size.
Let's say a big tech company.
it's a big tech company. Well, you might have some good work-life balance because, you know, all this COVID and stuff, you might be working from home more. But, you know, working from home has made people a lot busier now, too.
Yeah. And pure salary potential off the bat seems to be the best with the software company.
Of course.
Software
that's where it's going.
Yeah.
You know, software. And so, I mean, but money is money, man. You know, and to me, one way I learned that is because that company that I was told I wasn't a good cultural fit. Yeah. At that place, that was the most money I had made at a job. Most money I had made. And I had the highest salary at that time in my career. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. It was really good money, too, at least for me. Maybe for some other people, it's not good money. It's all relative. But for me, poor kid, coming, you know, out of Chicago and not having much, you know, materialistically, you know, that was pretty good. So just know that sometimes you can chase the money and the stress that comes with it may not be worth it.
Right.
So that's why I really emphasize the work-life balance and the culture. Culture matters. It really does. Where you feel like you're going to fit in.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Well, on that note, I want to go ahead and wrap this puppy up as the evening descends.
Yes, sir.
Is there any? If there people want to find out more about what you're doing, your company, where can they find out more about you guys?
Yes, you can go to www.alliedinnovationgroup.com. We have a website there. You can. We also have an area where you can, you know, put in your name and type in any questions you want to, you know, contact me. Or you can just reach out to me directly. Email me at benjamin@alliedinnovationgroup.com. Either one. You can email me directly. Go to the website. Put in an inquiry. The inquiry goes straight to our email. You know, I respond. Or, you know, contact Mahan. But that's where you can find me. And I'm very responsive. And we're here to serve you.
Right.
Yeah, whatever needs you have, if you need something built, whether it's a house, whether it's your store, whether you need it renovated, whether you have industrial needs, we're here to serve you. And that's really what we're here to do. That's why we came into business, is to serve the people. So
cool. All right. Well, and you can reach me at info@soulsandstickers.com. Make sure you follow this page on YouTube. The video version of this will be up on Facebook. Audio, make sure you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts. I think I covered it. So till next time, internets, we are signing off here as the night descends here in downtown Chicago with my special guest, Abiola Benjamin Oluwajimi Gordon. Did I get it right?
Hey, you got them all right, man. All right. Hey, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
It was a long time coming. I know we talked about it in the fall.
Yeah.
And then I started traveling. And then I went to Bangladesh, Morocco, Spain. And then we came back and COVID hit.
Hey, you living a good life, man. But all fruit ripens on its own time.
Right. So it was a pleasure. Hopefully have you. I want to do another show with you about like some of what's going on with like the political climate in America.
Yeah, we didn't even get a chance to get to that, but I'll be interested to come back for that.
For sure. But I think this was a good topic about your background and both, you know, spirituality wise and also with your career and a lot of good insights. So people will definitely benefit. So. We'll talk to you guys later. Take care.
Thank you.